How y'all doing? This is your boy Lord Thaddeus Cray. This one's going to be a little bit different than any kind of cryptid I've covered before. And it's one that I'm definitely entertained by, but I'm not going to necessarily vouch and say I'm positive it's something that exists. What I'm talking about is the Oklahoma Octopus. This kind of creature is much different than most of the other things I've covered. There's not really been too many recorded sightings, if any at all. There have been sightings. There's been stories about this thing, but again, there's not really been any footage of anything that I can recall of anything found in any kind of fresh body of water in Oklahoma or that area. What I'm trying to tell you is I'm very much a skeptic of this, but at the same time, since I am definitely one that loves to cover things that are definitely not the norm, it's definitely fascinating to me, and it's definitely interesting. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some points where it could exist. Think about this. If it's a kind of creature like they're describing, it's most likely going to be a cephalopod. And what is a cephalopod? That is something that it is, think of, it usually does not have a skeleton. It may have cartilage, but it doesn't have a skeleton like most other sea creatures would. And this is, of course, covering your octopi, your cuttlefish, squid, things like that. Now, it's very possible something like that could get to a massive size, especially squid. But these are all ocean-dwelling creatures. Of course, there's been recorded sightings of, and of course, there's been footage, and, of course, the markings on sperm whales prove this. That's what they eat, is giant squid. That's their main staple of food. These things get huge. I mean, they're massive, like from head to... Of course, they have those two long tentacles, but literally from the tip of them to the end of their tail, them things can get up like near 50 feet long. They're huge. I mean, so it's definitely, of course, something like that could easily drag a person underwater. But again, you have to understand one thing. That's a deep-sea animal in the ocean, salt water, if you understand what I'm saying. I do not believe very firmly or easily that a large body of water that is freshwater would be big enough to... anything's possible. It is possible. I'm just saying I kind of have my doubts that something like that would hold like a cephalopod that would be that large. Anything's possible. Again, anything's possible. I'm just saying I'm skeptical about it. And of course, since it's called an Oklahoma octopus, you have to think about that. The descriptions of that of an octopus. So you have to think about this. The giant octopus, the largest octopus out there that is known. It gets pretty big, make no mistake. It could easily, if it could get a hold of a person, it could drag a person underwater. Definitely. It's definitely strong enough to. Potentially. But the thing is, these kind of creatures are actually fairly gentle, and they mainly want to be left alone. And they're nowhere near the size of a giant squid. Not even close. Don't get me wrong, they're big. And if they wanted to hurt someone, they could. Quite easily. But they usually don't. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Hell, your more dangerous kind of octopus is usually something like, I think it's called a ring octopus or something like that. They're small ones, and their bite can kill you deader than a doornail. And they're like literally not even maybe the size of your pinky. My point is, usually the most dangerous ones aren't the ones that will drag you underwater and eat you. They're the ones that'll bite you in self-defense and you'll drown because you've been poisoned, and that's a wrap. Now, I will say this. There are different types of animals that can live both in salt water and fresh water. It is possible for an octopus for a short period of time to be in a fresh body, like basically a freshwater body, like a pond or a lake. It is possible, but not for a very long period of time. Also, you have to think about this. Some of the individuals that have been supposedly drowned by such a creature, there's no markings on them hardly. No sucker marks, no nothing of the sort. If you find an animal or an individual that has been killed by a mollusk, 9 times out of 10 there's going to be sucker marks on it. That's what they use with their tentacles to grab something. That's literally how they grab their food and interact with different objects and things like that, and how they function. So that right there is another thing to really take into consideration. Could there be something supernatural going on? That's, if it exists, that's really where I'd be leaning towards. Because again, biologically, anything's possible. Again, I say that there's always a fact behind every fable, but I'm just saying something like this will be very difficult to prove scientifically. This is what I'm trying to get across. Now, if there is a large animal like that that is a cephalopod, you ain't going to find much of anything like that if it dies. This is what I'm trying to tell you. There are minor things that can be found, but again, these things don't have a skeleton that I know of, so it would be very difficult to find anything like that. Yet at the same time, I'm just saying, something like this is, at least to me, it's difficult to be believed in a physical or scientific train of thought. Now, could there be something paranormal going on? Well, of course. To me, actually, if there's anything like that that's going on, that's what I'd be leaning towards. I mean, hell, you have everything from Dogman, Bigfoot to crawlers. That could be easily described as that. And of course, beyond that. So yes, it is very possible, maybe even probable, in this case, if there is something going on, and that's if, when it comes to the Oklahoma Octopus, that if there's any kind of evidence of that, well, again, you may be looking at more something of interdimensional, maybe even demonic. I don't know. But I'm just going to leave it at that. The reason I decided to bring this up was because it was a little bit different and also fairly interesting, to say the least, if something like that exists. I've always loved movies and different things like Jaws, as well as there was a movie called Tentacles. Oh god, that thing was horrible, but it was still entertaining back in the day. So I've always been another one was Devilfish. So, I mean, I've always been very interested and fascinated by such creatures, as well as the possibility that they could exist. There are so many types of water-based creatures and cryptids, it's ridiculous. So there's something going on. But again, this one thing, the only kind of scientific thing, I don't really have too much in the way to say that. So that's why I'm saying, if it's anything out there, it's most likely paranormal. Now, I could be wrong. I'm no expert on this. But I just put my own 2 cents out there. So anyway, as I said, I figured this would be entertaining to put out there. And of course, I mean, it's something different. And I figured, you guys would want more original content from me, at least when it comes to my theories and experiences. And since I definitely don't have any experience with this kind of thing, it's definitely a theory. You guys know what I do. I produce for Dark Waters Entertainment. If you've had any kind of cryptid experience or paranormal, hit me up at wesvic@iamdarkwaters.com, and I'll make sure that you definitely have the chance to tell your story. You guys be blessed and you be safe.